With us now on the 27th of November 2020, African National Congress Treasurer General Paul Mashatile launched a foundation named after his late wife, Manzi Mashatile. The foundation aims to look into the development of the Alexandra community in terms of the development of education and many other social challenges and requirements. Mr. Mashatile joins us now via Zoom. A very good morning to you, Mr. Mashatile. I know it's a bit late, but let's once again, because one week after the other, you lost people very dear to you, your mother and then your wife. It's rather late, but let's once again send our condolences.
Thank you very much, Desiree. And good morning to listeners.
A very good morning to you. We're in a weekend where the world is marking the passing of ANC stalwart and global icon Nelson Mandela. What does this mean for you?
Well, Desiree, we know that Tata Mandela was regarded by all of us as the father of our nation, the father of the new democracy that we enjoy today. So it brings back those memories of where we come from. When Tata Madiba came out of prison, it was really the beginning of a new journey to freedom. And so we will recall that journey. We will continue to honor him because the democracy we enjoy today was made possible, amongst others, by Tata Mandela and the generation that worked with him. It's a great honor to us.
Let's speak about the foundation you have just formed. It's an ongoing story, the challenges of the Alexandra community in terms of broken promises and deferred projects that were supposed to be done and never done. Did you have this in mind when you thought of forming an organization named after your wife?
Desiree, what happened is that after the passing of Manzi, the children and myself decided that we wanted to honor her and honor her in a way that she lived her life, the life of caring, of giving. Over the years, she would always pay school fees for the children of my brothers, her children, and other people in the community. She will give clothes. So we decided, let's form a foundation as a way of continuing that legacy. And not only focusing in Alex, we also want to look at other parts of the country where people are destitute, rural areas. But to start, we wanted to start in Alex, which was her home as well. We've just 2 weeks ago adopted a school where she started in the 70s. We will renovate the school. Last week, Thursday, just this past Thursday, we donated school shoes and school bags and blankets to children in that school. We know that normally foundation and trust focus on bursaries to tertiary students. That we will do in the second year. But for the first year, we want to start with primary school because Manzi liked young children. And although the children in primary schools don't necessarily need bursaries and scholarships, but they need other things like uniform, school shoes. So we're going to focus on those things. And the other issue, Desiree, is we also want to do a bit of charity work. So on the 15th of December, we will distribute food parcels, particularly to elderly people. We'll target old age homes. And it's something that we're going to do every year. During winter, we'll distribute blankets. And as I said, we're starting in Alex, but we will grow into other communities with time.
So you launched the other week also to introduce a board of directors. Just take us through that aspect of the foundation, just in terms of good governance, assuring good governance and sustainability of the foundation?
Yes, there are 15 members of the board, chaired by Advocate Lindiwe Maseko, who used to be the Speaker of Gauteng and was also in Parliament. She's also on the National Executive Committee of the ANC. My son Thabiso is a CEO. My daughter Palisa is a CFO. I'm the patron, and my focus mainly was to assist setting up the foundation, and I'm going to focus on raising funds and building partnership with other foundations. For instance, for the school shoes we were donating in Alexandra at Mfundisweni Primary School, it was a partnership with the Stain City Foundation. So we're going to work with other foundations that exist, but the board has been set up. We have appointed a firm of lawyers to be the law firm for the foundation. We've appointed a firm of auditors, so that good governance must be really what governs this foundation. It must be properly audited. The resources that comes into it must benefit those that it's intended to benefit. And it's mainly young people, the youth, with skills development, supporting them throughout primary schools, high schools. And the majority of those who will benefit are going to be girl children. The board has agreed that 60% of what the trust does in terms of support and donations or bursaries must go to girl children. And with respect to community development, we'll work with NGOs, particularly that support women empowerment. And so those are the things that we're going to focus on. We've got a very good board. The information is already on the website. We have put stuff on the website. We launched on the 27th. And also we will get the foundation to also use the medium of Facebook, Twitter, etc., so people can follow the work of the foundation and support.
How's the foundation going to be funded?
We are looking at the experience of other foundations, the Nelson Mandela Foundation and others, where we would go to businesses, we'll go to community people who want to donate. And so some of the business people have already donated some money to the foundation. But other things, there's going to be partnership where we don't necessarily need money. For instance, there are people who have been working a lot in the field of donating food parcels, etc. You go and get those donations to be taken to communities like we'll be doing on the 15th. But we will, most of next year, we will be focusing on fundraising. Because of the COVID situation, it's very difficult to do dinners to fundraise. But we'll see if the situation improves. We may have golf days, dinners, but also just getting information out to people who are willing to donate. And we will spend a lot of next year raising funds so that by 2022, we have a lot of resources to give to support high school children with bursaries and tertiary children with colleges and universities. Mm-hmm. But our work has already started now with primary schools, and we've started in Alex.
So when you set up an organization or such as this one, a foundation, you have a list of challenges that you feel you would like to address, as you have stated them.
Yes.
But once you hit the ground running, you then get a clearer idea of the scale of those challenges and the possibility some of them cannot be solved right away. Just give us a sense of what you've seen on the ground in Alex and the other communities that you hope to extend it to. And just give us a sense of the depth of the challenges.
Well, let's start with primary schools. One thing that we've noticed is that although most of these schools in the townships and rural areas are what we call no-fee schools, so parents who can't afford to pay school fees don't have to do so, and the children won't be turned back. But we realize that even if that is the case, you find that some children don't have school shoes, they don't have proper uniforms, school bags. Yes, they do get, there's feeding schemes in these schools, but things like shoes, they are very important for children because, if children don't have proper clothes, and it also affects their confidence in the learning environment. So that's one thing that we have noticed. And of course, when you go to high schools and universities, you find that although NEFSAS is there, the government is putting a lot of resources, there are still those who fall within the cracks. So the idea of the foundation is like, look, let's do our part. Let's not wait for government to do everything. Yes, government will give children from destitute families bursaries through NEFSAS, etc. There are private companies that also does the same. So the foundation is really also adding to those efforts to say, communities, let's do our part. Through structures like the foundation, we are also adding our voice, our efforts to help with the process of bettering the lives of people. So at the end of the day, this is part of transforming society, part of empowering people. And as you say, as we go on, we will notice other problems. But for instance, one of the things that the board has already noticed is that there are what we call in South Africa unemployed graduates. Somebody has finished college or university, but they are not employed. So we said part of our program will include what we call skills development and placing. So we're going to go to private companies and say, we've got these students, they finish their studies, maybe somebody has a BCom degree or whatever. Can you take one or two of them into your company? So that's going to be one of our efforts. Mm-hmm. But we also want to support not necessarily academic efforts, but also in the arts and sporting sector, we should also do the same.
So you could have called this foundation the Paul Mashatile Foundation, taking into regard your stature. But we also, in that era, the president makes it a point every time he speaks to incorporate the ugly scourge that the country is facing of gender-based violence alongside the massive need to recognize female leadership in the country. It's not often that men will ask of the community to remember their wives, their counterpart. Take us through the process for you of being in a place where you're so secure, you're able to acknowledge your better half.
Well, Desiree, let me start by saying, when I was a Premier of Gauteng in 2008, there were efforts by friends and other people to start the Paul Mashatile Foundation. But I saw what the process was started, it started going on and on. But at that point, I decided, look, I think let's wait for the right moment to do that. My focus on that foundation was going to be supporting entrepreneurship. I've got a very strong passion for leadership, not only in government or politics, but also in business. So it was going to focus on leadership, but mainly entrepreneurship as well. So we sort of like put it aside. So coming to this one, why we went this route is because Manzi used to like supporting children in family and beyond. She liked giving. For instance, she would come to me and say, you know what, I see you're not wearing this shirt and that suit in your wardrobe. Can you put them on the bed? I'm going to donate them. So she used to do things like that. So the children and I decided, look, let's continue that work because it's a very important legacy, the legacy of giving. In a way, we are saying we're honoring her for that kind of caring, of giving, of loving, and we're naming this foundation after that, and we're going to do this work. So if there's a need for a Paul Mashatile Foundation at some point, we'll look into it. But for now, our efforts are going to focus on this.
Yeah. And
you are quite right, Ezra. I think it's important that we must recognize women leadership, the efforts that they take, so that, we don't have all this foundation by men only. So this for us is a very important step we're taking.
So, Mr. Mashatile, we might be talking to you on a Saturday, but this is a daily show. And on the daily, our viewers send in messages, whether it's on social media or on email or any other platform they're able to communicate with us on, about the shortcomings of the African National Congress government. And I imagine viewers watching our interview now, you're no ordinary person. You're a long-standing senior member of the African National Congress, where the decisions of the country are made. And I imagine people watching our interview now are feeling, but the very things he wants to, he's concerned about are the things that the African National Congress government should have. They moved their eye off the ball on these things and were not able or haven't made these things come to fruition. How would you respond to such an assertion that you are wanting to fix the very things that you've had an opportunity since the dawn of democracy to fix?
Of course, the African National Congress has not been able to do everything, or maybe let me say, has not been able to perform to the satisfaction of everybody. But something has been happening. If I look back to 1994, I can say to you that there are many human settlements today that were not there before. Houses have been built, new schools, roads. But of course, there's a lot more that needs to be done. And when we came with the idea of the foundation, was not really to do with the limitations of government. It's really to say, can we also lend a hand? Because sometimes there is the attitude in a country where people want everything from government. Government must build us houses, government must do this and that and that. What we're saying, yes, government must do its part. The African National Congress must make sure that our cadres in government perform according to our manifesto, where we said we want a better life for all our people. Let's do that. We're going to continue to push for that. But communities must lend a hand where they can. So the foundation is not going to solve the problems that government is failing to fix. The foundation is saying, government, as you do this, we can also do a little bit to help, like all other foundations are doing. Look at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Mandela Foundation for the Children. They build a hospital. So these are very important efforts. My view is that the work of the government will improve as the ANC continue to strengthen its work. Now that the president has announced a recovery plan, we must make sure our ministers hit the ground running, because sometimes the weakness is not that we don't have the plan or the resources, but the implementation is lacking behind. And that's really where we need to focus.
So we wake up this morning to headlines such as Cyril goes or Ace stays. You are senior leadership in the organization. You're taking part in this NEC meeting that's going to take place. You've really come out victorious in the previous by-elections in November, and we see your members are out in full force preparing for a second tranche of by-elections in December, and you can tell us there how you hope the ANC will fare. But citizens are really concerned, especially leading up to the local government elections next year, about the reported fractions within the African National Congress. What is happening?
Well, sometimes what you read in the media is not what is happening inside the ANC. For instance, this morning they were saying a divided top six on the matter of Comrade Ace. We're not divided at all. The top six discussed the matter. Firstly, when we learned that the Secretary General is charged, is going to appear in court, we said we will support him as he goes through that legal process. He himself said, I will cooperate with the law enforcement agencies, I will go to court. And we said in our statement, let the law take its course. Then there was, secondly, an issue of step down. Now, many people may not be aware that once the NEC took this decision, it was later referred to the top six to look at the implications of such a decision and of such a decision and how you implement it. That's why we had to take legal opinion and so on. So that matter is not actually closed. But if you read the resolution of conference, says once you are charged criminally and you have to appear in court, the Secretary General may suspend anybody who doesn't give a proper explanation or fail to voluntarily step aside. So it is envisaged on that resolution that a leader might decide, because of this situation, let me step aside. If you don't, the Secretary General may suspend you. Because now it is the Secretary General involved, it means the matter goes to the NEC to decide. He may decide he wants to voluntarily step aside. He may decide he doesn't. The NEC may decide whether there are compelling reasons for the Secretary General to step aside, or in terms of the language of our resolution, it's a suspension. So that discussion will take place, but it's not necessarily because we are divided. We are looking at how best we deal with the matter, looking at the rights of members in terms of the Constitution and everything, and weigh the matter with respect of what society expects from us, because we have to lead by example as the ANC to show we are very strong on dealing with the issue of corruption, both in the ANC and the public sector. But the matter of stepping aside, as I said, is a matter that the officials are looking at and will report to the NEC. We'll discuss it today. And it's not necessarily that, Comrade Ace must step aside or President must step aside. We may end up in a situation where basically nobody goes anywhere.
I have to admit that just listening to you, I'm more confused than having clarity. One. Yeah. Let me just ask you, is there any truth to reports that the National is sending Mr. Obed Bapela to the Northwest in terms of wanting him to be a premier there?
No, not at all.
All right. Thank you so much for talking to us.
It's just a rumor. Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to us today, Mr. Paul Mashatile. We know him as the Treasurer General of the African National Congress, but today he was talking to us as the founder and patron